great to see some familiar faces in the crowd and some repeats from earlier this week. I'm Diana Hagland, I'm the Communications Director for Wenatchee School District, and I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight, both in person and those who are streaming on our YouTube channel, to tonight's Superintendent Finalist Forum with Mr. Tavis Peterson. A couple of quick notes about tonight. The people that are here in the audience should have received a handout, and if you don't have one, there's some available on the back table. Your feedback is important to us and to our school board in the decision-making process for our next superintendent. Next to each photo on that sheet is a QR code you can scan. That scan will take you to a feedback form where you can provide your input on strengths and weaknesses of each one of our candidates. Because we are live streaming tonight, we do ask that you silence your cell phones and that you please remain quiet so that everyone can hear Tavis's answers to the questions. We have 13 questions that will be asked, and he'll have about 3 minutes per question to provide his answers. At the end of tonight's presentation, we will stop the live stream, but we will have an opportunity for people who are here in the audience, a perk of being here in person, that you'll get a chance to come up and meet Mr. Peterson and ask questions at that time. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'd like to welcome Mr. Tavis Peterson to the floor. And I'm going to prompt you with your first question, which is, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to be superintendent of Wenatchee School District.
Thank you, Nancy. So I'll start with some personal information about myself, some personal background, professional background, and how we ended up here together, and why I'd like to join the Wenatchee School District. So, born in Dallas, Texas, and we've got some cheering already in the back. And my dad was in the military, and so we moved around quite a bit when I was a young boy. He had gone into the military at 18 and retired at 38. But prior to his retirement, I was born in Dallas. We moved to California, and then we moved to Baltimore, Maryland, and then back to Texas, Galveston, Texas. And then when he retired, we moved to Colorado Springs, Colorado. And that's really where I spent most of my time growing up. And so the great experiences growing up, living in all those different parts of the country, experiencing different things. And Colorado Springs was fantastic. Colorado Springs has a lot of military installations at Peterson Air Force Base, the Air Force Academy, and Fort Carson Army Base. And so we accessed those opportunities because it was part of my dad's retirement benefits. So spent a lot of time on those bases, and again, very grateful for those experiences. Unfortunately, my father had also acquired a service-related illness that was terminal, and so he had grown up in the Dalles and wanted to be closer to his family. And so we moved to Yakima, Washington. He had one of his closest siblings lived in Zillah, Little Zillah, if you know where that is, it's outside of Yakima. So we moved to Yakima 5 or 6 days after I graduated high school. And so then as I started thinking about my next steps and growing up, I attended Yakima Valley Community College, the YVC, and earned an associate's degree there. Then went on to Central, had an interest in psychology and earned a bachelor's degree in psychology, and then went to work for a little while, and I was trying to figure out what my next steps might be. I was working with some youth programs, did a mentorship for AmeriCorps with foster youth, and worked in a residential youth facility. And kind of started to see my path as I had this interest in psychology and also an interest in working with students, or with kids at the time. And so I don't remember who it was, but someone suggested I talk to this person who was a school counselor at Eisenhower High School. And so I went and shadowed this person, and she was just welcomed me with open arms. She said, come and see what I do. And I thought, oh, that's what I want to be right there. So kind of blending these two interests that I have. Went back to Central Washington University and earned a master's degree in school counseling. I was fortunate enough to be hired in a district just outside of Yakima, Union Gap School District. And professionally, I kind of think of Union Gap as my hometown. But small district, and small district really has some benefits that you don't get in larger systems. And as I go on with my story, you'll see I've worked in some larger systems as well that have also been very beneficial. But Union Gap, K-8 district, 660 students when I worked there, really gave me an opportunity to wear a lot of hats. And this is really important in my professional development because I started as a school counselor, then I was the assessment coordinator and the safety coordinator, Then I was the athletic director, I was coaching football, I was coaching baseball, and I just found myself to be really curious about all these different roles. The coaching, that was more because I played sports, and I just love sports. But even being an athletic director wasn't so much about that, it was just like learning about systems within the educational setting. And I had a great mentor there who said, Tavis, you might want to think about a principal program, get your principal cert. You can really dig into some of these deeper responsibilities. And so I did that, with that encouragement. And after 6 years in Union Gap, I was hired on in Sunnyside School District, so a larger system. In fact, I went from a school district of 660 to a building of 775. And I started to learn, so I had all those experiences wearing different hats in Union Gap. And then in Sunnyside, a larger district, I got to learn about systems and structures. It was really helpful for my professional development and my growth as an administrator. And I was in Sunnyside for 6 years as well, 5 years in one building, and then 1 year in another building. And at that time I thought, and I had great experience in both Union Gap and Sunnyside, but I knew there was another opportunity for me somewhere to be a principal, and sought that out in Wapato. And I was hired as a building principal in Wapato. I served as building principal for 4 years. And again, another great experience. I've just been really fortunate. All of my stops have just been really fascinating and really helpful. After 4 years, again, some encouragement. A great mentor of mine suggested, Tavis, you might want to start looking at district office work. I think a strength of mine is looking at systems for consistency and equity, and so that fit at that district level. And so I was encouraged to go to a superintendent program, which I did through Washington State University, and then I was hired on, interviewed, and was given the job as an executive director in the Wapato School District. Served in that role for 2 years, and then after that was appointed as an assistant superintendent. And some of the roles that I had included student discipline, student safety, and implementation of district-wide systems like PBIS, and a lot of our attendance work, and also was assigned to be the tribal liaison for the Yakama Nation. And then after a couple of years of doing that work, I moved over to Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, although I did maintain the tribal liaison work, because it's a work that I really enjoy. I've got some great relationships with the Yakama Nation, and so I was able to keep that responsibility. So that kind of gets us to today, because I still serve in that role, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Tribal Liaison for the Yakama Nation for the Wapato School District. But I want to catch up a little bit personally from, I think I dropped at 18, well, we'll pick it up, fast forward a little bit. But I do have a very supportive wife. We have 4 children, we're a blended family. So she brings 2 daughters to the family, I brought a son, and then we have a little one together. We have, and I'm gonna just kind of let this resonate after I make these comments, just so you can kind of feel the full weight of this. But we have 3 adult children, and we also have a 9-year-old. There you go. Just let that simmer. But he truly is a blessing, and I want to thank my wife and son for being here this evening. They're sitting right there in the back, so I appreciate their support. And we also have 3 grandchildren. So we have 1 daughter that lives in Pennsylvania, 1 that lives in Seattle, and our older boy is in Boulder, Colorado, attending college. So that's a little bit of my background, and let me get to the second part of that question, why I want to be here. So my wife and I spent a lot of time on this conversation to try to make sure this was the right move for our family. And we really look at 3 filters. We look at the community, we look at the school district, and we look at if this is a good fit, if I'm going to be a good fit for the position. So, I've been to Wenatchee a handful of times, many times throughout the years. Been here for some conferences, I presented at a conference, and I've always enjoyed the community. And I've heard great things about the community. And my wife looked into the community, and she felt very comfortable moving here as well, relocating here. So the community, great recreational opportunities, that's important for all of us, particularly our little guy. And so that, we check that box. Community looks great. So then we say, okay, do we want Easton to attend the Wenatchee School District? The answer was yes to that. So we checked 2 boxes. So then it really was, am I a good fit for the district? Will my experience and my expertise pick up the great work that's been accomplished and continue to help it grow? So I started looking at the district. And a few things stood out right away. The first is the strategic plan. You guys have a very polished strategic plan. Not every district has that in place. That is work that I'm familiar with. We focus on we call it a growth plan where I am currently, but we focus on that work. I was able to lead the development of our growth plan in 2017, so that work is familiar with me, and then implementing it as well. So I thought, okay, that looks like a good fit. The other interesting part of the work that's been done in the Wenatchee School District is the equity review. You guys have a great document on your website that I was able to dig through. There's 5 real key components to that work, and that work is work that's very familiar to me as well. In 2017, I was asked to lead equity analysis work in our district, and it started kind of on a small scale, and it was just for a particular subgroup of students, but that has grown to all of our students now across all of our programs, with our buildings now creating action plans if we have any disproportionality and addressing that and unpacking it as to the root cause. So that work excited me as well. The third thing that I think stood out to me was the need to address some capital projects, some school buildings in the district. And that was just very fascinating to me. I would really love to engage in that work. And so I thought, I think I'd be a good fit. And so we looked at the community, we looked at the district, we looked at the fit, and I submitted my application. Here we are.
Thank you, Tavis. How do you develop trust and maintain active engagement with students, staff, families, and other members of the community?
Great question. So the first thing that comes to mind when I think about establishing trust is making sure that everybody understands the direction the district needs to move in order to support student outcomes. Because that's our objective, that's our mission as a school district. We are supporting student growth and student outcomes. And your strategic plan has 6 great outcomes, the big 6, and that really leads our work. And I want to share that with people. And it's really important in establishing trust because I want people to know the work that I plan to lead. Because after they see me leading that work, that will lead to trust. Oh, that's what he said he was going to do. Now we see him doing it with high levels of transparency and integrity. So the second part, I think, is about active engagement.
Yes, with students, staff, and families.
Then I think that happens at a building level and a district level. I think we need to have structures in place for our building administrators, our building staff to be spreading the good work that we're doing. So that's the building level. And then that's scaled up through the district and stakeholder meetings and other opportunities for us to communicate the work that's being done based off the work we said was going to be done. And that's why I started with those opening comments, because we have to share, hey, here's what we're going to be doing. Here's how we're going to do it. Here are the outcomes we're chasing. And then we're just updating people and getting their input, progress monitoring. I think that's the active engagement that we would be seeking.
How will you use data to lead the school district in utilizing multiple sources to measure student performance and to evaluate effectiveness of programs?
Heavily, but I probably should say more. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that you'll hear from me say, or hear from me frequently is, we'll let data tell the story. Like, my opinion isn't going to tell the story. We're going to be looking at data. And, I don't know if data always tells the whole story, so we certainly want stakeholder input. We want to learn historical relevance on topics we're discussing, but we'll rely heavily on data. I don't think that we need to operate from people's opinions. Again, we're focused on the big 6. We're focused on student outcomes. That is our objective as a school district. And so if people are trying to bring in things that may distract that work, it's a great opportunity to say, you know what, why don't we take a look at some of the research on that? Why don't we take a look at some of the data to support that line of thinking? And if it fits and we need to be flexible and shift, then we'll do that. But if the data is not there, then we can have a really open conversation. Hey, this doesn't align with the work that we've already described that needs to be done. And so we're going to have to pass on that right now. Also setting up systems and structures so that data is being looked at consistently across the system. So at the classroom level, at the grade level, or PLC level, building administrators are looking at their data, and we build in a system to do it regularly, and we look at the data, we analyze the data, and we make adjustments as necessary. Or it's confirmed that our work is on the right track, and we keep moving. So those are some of the ways that we've implemented the use of data.
As you consider the many important decisions that you will make as superintendent, what, in your opinion, should be the bottom line in decisions, and why?
Well, I think as a school district, I'd go back to that big 6. Those are all about student outcomes. That's why we're here. And so any decision we make needs to be reflective of keeping those student outcomes and our students in mind. That would drive every decision. Now, there are also some decisions that may be made for staffing and for operations, but those will always be filtered through students and the student outcomes.
Our school district is home to a variety of alternative programs and is growing in diversity. It also has a long-standing commitment to special education. Given this, please tell us your experience and philosophy in providing a diverse educational experience.
Well, I think that's the beginning of equity, really, is clearing barriers for students on an individual basis and creating pathways of success for those individual students. You know, in all the equity work that I've done, and all the data analysis that we've done, it always comes down to providing the individual student what they need. And so my experience in doing that would go back probably to a lot of our positive behavior interventions and supports work, PBIS, student expectations, looking at discipline data, and really trying to craft nuanced plans to help students who aren't meeting behavioral expectations, because sometimes those behaviors are not only disruptors in their own learning, but to the classroom setting. And so getting kids ready to learn, providing mental health supports, counseling, social emotional learning at whatever level the student might need, getting them ready to learn, and then implementing the academic interventions. And so kind of going back, you know, to like leveling the work for your students, we implemented RTI, response to intervention. That's sort of shifted into multi-tier systems of support now, and TSS. These are maybe kind of buzzwords for folks, but essentially it's just like meeting kids where they are. So in order to do that, you have to have the correct assessments though, so that you can identify their needs, and then you can apply the correct interventions. So we get them ready to learn, behavioral expectations, and mental health support is needed, and then we implement the correct interventions based off accurate assessments. And that's how we give that individualized student the path to success that they need.
Tell us about your administrative accomplishments that have given you the most pride and satisfaction.
Oh boy, there's a lot of work that I'm pleased with over, I think, 23 years now. I've been able to lead some multiple successful contract bargainings, and I'm really proud of that work because it shows collaboration with our employee units. And you know, it's not always easy. You're sitting across the table sometimes from people that you care about and you have relationships with, and conversations can be tough, but we get through it, and so I'm proud of that work. I am proud of the equity work that I've done in the district, and this does go back to the PBIS stuff, and I'd go and have building meetings with principals, and we would look at their discipline data, and we'd look at it by gender, we'd look at it by ethnicity, we'd look at it by special program designation, and we would determine if there was any disproportionate school exclusions, and if there were, we would action plan and address that disproportionality, and we had great growth in that. And you know, again, leading into this equity work that I described now that's grown, really pleased to see how that is becoming embedded now in our system, so that it's not dependent upon 1 or 2 or 3 staff members who lead the work, but it's going to be systemic work that's long-standing. So, and I could go on, and you know, it's a funny question because it's really like those are things I've been involved with, some of that work that I've led, but it's really always this really massive team effort to get all of those things done. So I wouldn't want to just stand here and take credit for that. Those are things that I'm really pleased to have been a part of and have had the opportunity to take the lead on.
You spent a full day here in Wenatchee, touring buildings, meeting with students, meeting with staff and different stakeholders. Based on what you know or have learned about our district, what do you see as our biggest challenges going forward, and how will you address those challenges?
You know, my first thought on that is I don't necessarily look at them as challenges, I just look at them as part of the work. I mean, when you have a system this size, we're going to have things to work on. And even as individuals, we have things to work on, and it's ongoing. So my mindset on that is just a bit different, I suppose, but I do know there's some budget concerns, and we need to have those addressed. But I also think that Superintendent Eagle has done a great job from what I've seen on getting a plan to address those. And I've researched kind of the standing of where we are. I've watched the board meetings online. I know that there's going to be some action taken pretty soon to select a scenario and a plan to run. And so it's a moment in time. Looks like it's going to be addressed. And we'll have other tough moments in time. That's the way the work goes. So we'll just continuously try to improve, but the budget does need to be taken care of and be stabilized, and I understand that. I do think that I clearly understand the district has a heavy interest in understanding diversity and equity and inclusion at a deeper level, and just making sure that our system represents that work. And so I think that's a priority. I guess I would say it that way. And then again, some capital projects. As I have been meeting with several stakeholder groups, I do hear that the Wenatchee High School needs attention to the level of which I'm not sure. But so that would be something that I think we would want to take a close look at quickly. And it might be more of a larger capital projects discussion versus just one school. I'm not sure yet, but those are the things that have surfaced that I think would be priorities.
How have you provided leadership for improving student achievement? Did it make a difference? How did you know?
That's a great question, and as soon as you started getting through the question, I think, when we look at data, we look at two things: growth and proficiency. Because if we just look at proficiency, sometimes students are going to make that, they're going to reach that proficiency at different times, and it might not be when we want that to happen. So the other thing we need to look at is growth. And some of the work that I've done to impact student achievement has been focused on that. And I just learned that early on as an administrator. We need to look at growth as much as proficiency. And if you do that, I think it creates a lot of hope, because if you're just looking at proficiency and you're stagnant and you're not getting there, kids aren't making it at the rate you want, it can be disheartening. And that's really what forces us to start looking at growth. Hey, yeah, they're not meeting proficiency yet, and that's the key word, yet. We're not learning from a math coach we had back in sixth grade, I say that, yet. They're not making it yet, but are they growing? And so then looking at the data, and then looking at our common formative assessments, and looking at our instructional techniques, and that to me was one of the funnest parts of being in the building, was instructional tinkering. And we support that now at the district level by hosting quarterly student growth meetings, where I don't know what the structure may be here in Wenatchee, but it's certainly something I'd like to learn about, where we get together with building administrators and we look at their student achievement data. We look at their student attendance data, and we look at their student discipline data, and we action plan off of that. We're looking at growth, we're looking at proficiency, and then we're looking at the action plan that their grade levels are putting in place to help ensure increased student achievement.
There are lots of parents and family members in the audience tonight and also tuning in on our YouTube channel. Tell us, what have you done to successfully engage parents as partners in their children's education?
Boy, that probably is a long list, so I'm just going to start, I guess, listing things off there because there's so many parts to that. So building good relationships with parents, teachers really need to build good relationships with parents, open communication, and that's actually, there's more access to that now than ever. And so they just need to have ongoing communication about their students' performance and provide parents ways that they can help support the student. It could be something as simple as like have a homework space, and let's make sure the homework is getting done, or your child's struggling with this concept, superintendent talking to them about it, and you can use this that I'm scanning to you as a springboard for the conversation. Conferences, we always push conferences. We want parents to step foot in the building, and we think that's important. Involving parents in PTOs and PTAs, that's always been really important for us to get their engagement through those activities. Certain committee work, having them attend assemblies, celebrations, celebrating their students. And the committee work is at the building level and at the district level. We've had parents on many committees at the district level. So that's just kind of a list. That's what came to mind, just kind of a bullet list of ways that we actively engage our parents.
What does being visible, approachable, and accessible mean to you?
Being in the building, being in the buildings, being in the community, being at the events, and being willing to have conversation with folks, engaging people in conversation. Those are some of the best ways to build a relationship. And going back to one of your first questions about trust, really, if I have an opportunity, even if it's an impromptu conversation at a grocery store, I may reflect back and say, hey, remember when we talked 2 months ago about whatever it was, and I said, and those are my comments, well, this is what's happened in the meantime. I think those are the things that I think about when being visible and accessible. So, yeah, come up and say hi. Just go up and say hi, or I'll come up and say hi. I'm accessible. I'm here, I'm accessible, and to me, that's a fairly simple approach.
Can you give us an example of what compass you use in your personal and professional life? What guides you as a leader?
You know, I didn't have these questions before. So these things are the first thing that come to mind. The first word that comes to my mind is integrity. I think that transcends everything. So that's my first compass, is integrity. Civility, I see it more and more. The importance of civility, I see it more and more. We've got to be civil with each other. We have to be courteous. It doesn't mean we have to agree. So integrity, civility, and the last thing that I probably would say is just one of my headers on this conversation would be collaboration. I'm a big collaborative learning person. I really enjoy, one of the students that I talked to today said, what's one of your favorite things about what you do? And I said, I think it's like when we have a really big problem and we get to solve it together. That was my response. So collaboration, integrity, civility, and collaboration guides my work.
What strategies would you implement to create an atmosphere of stability and continuity within the district, while at the same time initiating change for school improvement?
I think that goes back to our focused work. That's the stability. We all know which direction to push. We've agreed on it, and we're moving in that direction. That's the stability. Here's what we focus on. You can expect that from me. You should be able to expect that from your colleagues. That provides the stability, the predictability. That provides comfort for people. Knowing we always have to grow. We always have to be polishing our craft, honing our skills. But change doesn't have to be abrupt. I truly believe it can be incremental. I suppose there's going to be times where we might need an abrupt shift. We have to be open about that, about why, transparent the process for doing that. That's not my preferred style of change. My preferred style of change is incremental, and little bit by little bit, before you know it, you look back and go, wow, look how far we've come. Because I think when we face change, we have to understand the resources we have, and we have to understand the workload for people. And change can be hard, and so we don't want it to be abrupt. But you will hear from me all the time. We're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to get better. What are we working on? What do we need to work on? So that stability is the focus of the work, and that constant message that let's keep getting better. Let's keep polishing.
Believe it or not, we've arrived at our final question. You've had a long day today, and so I'm sure you're ready to put a bow on tonight's presentation and have an opportunity to meet some of our audience members. My last question is there anything that you'd like to share with us that we have not already asked you? And I'll add to that, is there anything that I've already asked you want to add to or elaborate on?
Well, first thing is I'm just getting my second wind. I'm ready to go. So, anyhow, what I would want to share with you that I don't think was really directly asking the questions is I clearly understand that this position needs leadership. We do have to tend to the daily work. Get that. We've got a great team in place. There's tons of resources to do that. This position needs to demonstrate leadership and vision, and I understand that. This position starts driving the 1, the 3, the 5, the 7, 10-year plans. This position starts to develop decade-long capital project plans. And I want you to know that that's what you'll get if I'm selected to be superintendent when I just close here. That leadership and that vision and that push for the district to continue to grow. And I think I'll end with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tavis, for answering all of those questions. We appreciate the time that you you spent in the district, meeting students, meeting staff, meeting with community members and parents. That ends the moderated portion of tonight's forum, so thank you for the opportunity to listen and to provide those great answers. For those of you who are tuning in online, please make sure you visit our website, wenatcheeschools.org, to provide your feedback on Mr. Peterson's strengths and weaknesses through an online form. You're welcome to do that through Monday of next week. So we will end the live stream and we will allow our in-person guests to come up and meet Mr. Peterson and have that opportunity to shake his hand. So thanks to everybody for being here tonight, and again, don't forget to provide your feedback. Thank you. Have a great evening.